Daily trading recap. Let's get after it today on this Monday, the 11th of April, 2022. Short week this week with Good Friday coming up to close us off this upcoming Friday. So we're getting after it today. Market dollar volume on the day first before we go over crazy, unfortunate thumbnail that we had today. But NASDAQ $230 billion volume as of 18 minutes after close here. NYSE $329 billion volume. OTC's $2.1 billion volume on the day. Having to take the loser, of course, with this session-wide parameter strategy for the futures aspect. 930 strategy working beautifully, getting the nice little immediate pretty much fill there on that trade. But yeah, this is just one of those trading days that I have to factor into this back-tested strategy and understand that, man, these losing days are going to happen like this. And this, of course, I'm going to factor into that this was half the size that I want it to be. Now that this was really the first day that I have now padded my account to be able to take the enough size. According to this was only 5 MES contracts. This was half of an ES contract equivalent. So it really should have been a $4,000 losing day for the 80 points or so that were ended up taking here after the close or coming into the closing session for the futures there. But yeah, just have to be factored in like this. They're going to have to lose sometimes, and that's the knowledge and experience that I have from already having gone through a few of these beforehand and realizing that and just trusting in the system that even for the back-tested data that I do have, I trust in it and say, okay, I think this could work in the future. Of course, past performance is not indicative of future results. But even if it shouldn't work out, like from all the back-tested data that I do have of going back to 2012 and even the most recent data that says that this strategy should work. Of course, the vacuum that is back-tested strategy optimization is totally different than what the real-world situation is. And obviously the fill situation and what happens specifically on the day of when global or just total market shifts start to happen. It's all about timing, right? So it's just going to be unfortunate whenever that timing starts, and unfortunate, of course, on this specific day, on this Monday, when I do start that full size back up again, that it's, okay, well, shoot, it's going to be a losing day for you. But I can still thank myself that it wasn't a full ES contract that it was taken. It was just only half of that size. So keeping my perspective along with that, it's just so tough on these days to just continue to see that number go red, and it's even tougher, but I'm learning to grow in that too, of not pushing the button, even though every single desire in me wants to start pushing that button as it starts showing any amount of sign of strength over VWAP, or starts looking that it's rejecting VWAP there around this point, or even as we're getting to close here, just saying, oh, just take away the pain, just cut it off of. But it's making me a better trader, and it's guiding me to understand what was the original time perspective that I've put on this trade to begin with for this futures trade, this individual session trade. It's not about the individual day. It is about the full collection of playing this trade over every single day, over weeks, over months, over years, that I want to look to expand this trade upon. So it isn't about the one single intraday loss. It is about the total collection of what this trade is. And even if I get to that whatever time frame of a year down the road that I'm still doing this strategy, and it's just like, you know what, this strategy is not working, like I'm still down in total P&L on this trade, okay, then it's rule number one for me. It's not attached to my ego. That doesn't define me as a trader. This was the timing of it. For whatever reason, we backtested all this data, we did all this great research, just didn't work at the time frame we were trading in. Okay, whatever. Move on, go to the next one. Just keeping that perspective in everything, and going through of all the videos watching today too. And I mentioned other things in my introduction here, but just keeping my nose to the grindstone, as this market is not where I derive my self-worth or my enjoyment of myself. This is a place to collect money, and that's really all I view it as, because the market doesn't view me as anything other than that either, as a place to collect money, because that's exactly the weight that I have to place on this, because it's not going to give me anything back in return if I give it anything more. It is what it is, and I can't try to fight it or change it to think I'm some speculative girlfriend that can change her boyfriend into thinking he actually does want to go for a long-term relationship. That's just not going to happen with this market. So getting kind of off course there, but I mentioned in my introduction here, my journal, that I wanted to mention here, of seeing a lot of potential morning dumpers come back around, a lot to pull up or save the charts for later. So that may prompt me to potentially start getting up a little bit earlier here on the West Coast time frame to start playing those morning dumpers early, that whenever they start spiking off of that initial news catalyst in pre-market, that as soon as that price action starts to reclaim to VWAP and that failure for price to maintain VWAP start in with a short around there and then just look for 10%. Really not trying to force. As of right now, I don't see forcing them to be a full day or full rest of pre-market trade, even into market hours, still holding shares on. For right now, I think in just seeing the pattern potentially start coming back around again with a few tickers optimizing themselves that way, just to say, hey, let's just go ahead and start out and play it once again. I think the risk, just the overall hit rate of the trade is most important to say of, okay, it is possible, versus what we were kind of in is really why I wasn't trading it hard whatsoever and why I was taking a lot of money out of my shorting account was to be able to put it in other accounts, but also of, it just wasn't an opportunity whatsoever. But now that it's been slowly reintroduced, it's been like one day, and I feel I've seen a few more sprinkled in here and there recently as well. Okay, if we are start aligning ourselves back again with that little bit of a mentality, okay, then I can go ahead and start sizing in a little bit more on those trades or just actually taking those trades. Then we can focus on the next step after that of, okay, how can we maximize the full profit potential of these trades, and how can we view the risk reward on, do they, as a risk, is it optimal for us to risk that high of day, or do they tend to spike and fail with just little teases above high of day and the like? All factors to be determined, but yet of that first step is we've made the observation, and now let's go ahead made an observation on a predictable and very well documented on my part pattern playbook trade. Okay, now let's step back into it and then get back into that role there. So that's going to be the plan for that, hopefully for the next few days, or go ahead and start trying it over this week at least. I also wanted to mention a great reminder of getting to listen to Tim Bowen in Pre-Market Prep today, but I don't think he said it specifically, but I was just reminded of in my head of I alluded to a little bit of how I've kind of turned my review sessions or study time post-market into like always just looking at the current movers and just looking at the current charts, not looking at them for the sake of, oh, hey, study what the chart did today, but just as of kind of continually going through scanners and going through, hey, what is the OTC scanner? What are the dumping stocks today? What stocks dumped a big percentage, or what are moving with breakouts and blah, blah, blah. Trying to define more parameters and find more scanners versus putting the quality time in on understanding one individual chart and the meat and bulk of what one specific chart did on that day. And I think I could very much relate that to what it kind of thought about in my pre-market prep, or what kind of Bowen was talking about a little bit of, it's just one good trade. That's the Mike Bellafiore quote, tying all of these things in together. But if it's just, all it takes is one good trade. And it doesn't matter because I know for certain that I would used to get in this rhythm of, okay, I need to totally fill out on my scans montage. I need to fill out all six of those little windows that I have with tickers. And like, if I don't, then I'm just like, what am I doing? I just need to be searching harder, because there's obviously always going to be opportunity to make money. But I think that's the lie I deceive myself in but I can't make money on every single one of those. And most importantly, every single one of those, I can't actually trade well on the individual chart if I'm trying to trade all of those at the same time as well. So I think that just little reflection reminded me of it's totally about the quality of the intent and the attention to the individual chart versus necessarily trying to play everything at the same time. And I could, appease myself a little bit or say there is a balance with that of, I don't want to be putting all of my eggs in one basket of, okay, well, it's just got to be this specific strategy or setup or nothing. Like similar with the future strategy, I would be absolutely having the worst day ever if I was only trading this future strategy. But yet now that I'm having all these plates that are spinning on sticks, if one of them ends up falling, I can still rely and say, okay, well, that one fell, and I don't like that it fell, but I'm going to learn from it, and I'm eventually going to pick it up and put it back on that, get a new plate and start spinning it on another stick. And with all 40 of my hands that are going around, I'm going to have my own one-man circus and continue to juggle these things and go about my day, because there's so many more to worry about, focus on, than just the one that's fallen. So there's a balance of, okay, let's put in the work and spread ourselves out to say, hey, what different areas do we like and how can we continue to maximize myself, but also saying, hey, let's not spread myself too thin and just run myself ragged of not really giving everything its full weight and what amount of attention I should be putting there. So I think that's a great reminder from Bowen today and being able to watch that one. That one good trade. That's always going to be it. I have this line here, 443.47 on SPY, because that's where we kind of double bottomed the previous 2 trading days. So obvious potential support level, or the 2 previous days of the past 3 trading days. So obvious as we're kind of peeling off here in this pre-market closer to that level. Hey, that's a potential point of inflection to be looking at for the day as a technical analysis indicator. We get a shove underneath within the first 15 minutes of market open, but then we reclaim and just continues to linger around VWAP. And again, more testament, I want to get more patting on myself on the back of wanting to just continue to push that button and get short this thing through ES contracts and try to play this thing for more downside, because it was just so evident, especially through the tick, that, I mean, there was some potential buying pressure coming back in on this one, but I was just like, this line is too attractive. And I think if it dunks there, it's going to dunk very hard. So eventually I did have enough patience to wait for that one final key moment when we're getting to 10:23 time frame here, as we just continually start to test that little formula level of on SPY here, relatively 443.37. So just that area. Of course, it's not a hard technical indicator, especially on an index, but just keep myself accountable to that. That in mind as trying to trade that way. So getting short one ES contract, and gosh, I just needed it to happen with, especially when I'm going with ES contracts. I want to see that trade happen immediately. I don't want to be playing around, guessing games. For so many times in this big consolidation in the morning, I was thinking, okay, I could get short here. And I'm thinking, oh, well, it's spiking against me. It's created a new high. I probably would have stopped out there. Oh, but now it looks great here in this candle. And oh, well, I could have got short again. Oh, it spiked against me. Oh, I would have been kind of covering there. So many different times that I just would have been screwing myself over. And that's what the market is meant to do. And that's what I don't want to just keep digging myself into a hole, trying to just dig myself out of the hole with ES contracts. But eventually just waiting like that sniper, waiting for the perfect shot and that opportunity of, gosh, I think if it starts to crack, it's going to crack very big. And as it just wasn't barely testing these levels again, and it just wasn't happening in the time frame that I wanted to. 20 seconds later, I go ahead and end up covering that 2 points against me to just wipe out what I did for that 9:30 strategy. So it was kind of break even minus what the session automated strategy was on the day. But sure enough, 2-3 minutes later, ends up going beautifully to new low of day, 8 points plus within that 3 to 4 minute time frame. I mean, that's what I was looking for. This little trade, and that's what I want to be doing, is waiting so patiently that the chart is literally forcing my finger to push the button, that I can't hold back any longer. Especially with that ES contract size, that's what I need to be doing, and that's what actual good trading comes from. In my view of, it's got to be, it can't just be willy-nilly how I used to do on the days where I just dug myself into such a deep, crazy hole. I'm trying to revive myself by putting more bullets in the gun, which is not a good idea. But yeah, on days like this, it's those little tiny things. That's trading the index, right? Of keeping your time frame and your perspectives in mind, and that risk reward sometimes has to be a little wonky, but it's just the conviction factor and getting more familiarity with trading the index itself. But that's what I'm here for. I'm just continuing to show up, continuing to put in the work and the screen time, and be ready and prepared if those opportunities do want to show themselves. So that's the mindset that I always have to carry, that this market owes me nothing. Just because I show up early, just because I stay late, just because I stand here and just bleed my eyeballs out, doesn't mean it owes me anything. And it's not about what feels good. It isn't about what looks decent on the volume profile level, or what type of volume comes in, or what percentage of a profit that I get on a trade. It's just all about the money aspect, right? Because if I have $3 million, that's the whole thing with the uber trillionaires, and everybody asks them, oh, what's your investing secret? Like, what are you going to look at for Tesla? You know, what's your idea on blah, blah, blah on this ticker? And they just look at them so crazy, like, I'm in bonds. What are you talking about? Because they have that enough, they've won the game, first off. And because that size of money, you can get away with those super low percentages and still live an incredibly maximal life. So that's the ideology that I have to carry too in all of this. Of, yes, it is about percentage points. Yes, it is about trading good, repeatable patterns. But yet again, at the end of the day, we're all here to pull money out of the market and make money. That's what just continually have to remind myself with. And I think Jack Kellogg, for some reason, is a good reminder of that for me for just other reasons, other than what I think he tries to portray, but it's not about being the smartest guy in the room. It's not about making the most beautiful or the most perfect entry and the most perfect top tick exit. It's about making money. That's what we're here to do, and nobody's going to remember anything else of it other than how much P&L did you make at the end of the day. And that's not even what I'm here for, is to try and live for other people, but just for myself. Of as long as I'm pulling money out, then I don't need your validation of the market. I don't need anybody else's validation. It's just it's a job. That's what I'm here for. So I think that's what I'm going to leave it at for the introduction. Go ahead, get into HOTH, first screen day mover on the day. It says a American pharmaceutical 23 million floater. News catalyst today was a therapeutic proves effective against cancer cells, which is pretty good buzzword there for cancer. They do have some pipe warrants at 186 and 225. Price target didn't really come into effect today. Also, they have a $25 million shelf from 2020, I believe. Also had a first screen day on the 4th of January 2022 here. I do believe I tried to go short this one, actually, which was a surprise to me because I didn't think I was still shorting at the start of this year, but tried to play for a little downside. I think I must have covered actually around that point in time. But that is pretty much one of the morning dump setup patterns of just looking for that price's failure to maintain VWAP, looking for the high of day risk area should this price start to go against me in pre-market itself, but otherwise look for getting, if I could look at it as a 110 average fill, and covering into $1 or just below $1. That is a beautiful trade in my book. That is easy, clean. Don't even have to mess around with it or fool around with what it did in pre-market there. But sure enough, on this day, it showed it does have the potential to start spiking hard if I am getting greedy or lacking in my discipline, being able to take profits as they are there. Sure enough, goes into a halt on this day as well. So keeping that in mind for what it could do potentially. For how well it was holding above VWAP, went at it again today with the first minute spike type of scalp trade, looking for that. Sizing in with 200 shares, getting in first with like 151. Holds a little bit in these penultimate 3-minute candles here before the close, or before the open, excuse me. So just looking for, literally had an order at 1.6. Just literally looking for, in the craziness, in the chaos of what is the huge volume print of that first minute candle, that for most of these and for most of these first green day charts that I have, that's what I feel happens, is they either come close to that initial high of day in pre-market, or they can just get kind of randomly. If you've got a limit order in, sometimes you can luckily get filled before it really even shows that price is there at that point, but just for how fast the tape is moving. So just putting in that type of trade and respecting it on a time perspective of, okay, I'm going to let this minute candle play out. If it starts dumping hard, I mean, like, if it's under 1.4 and not looking good whatsoever, I'm definitely going to cut it immediately. So holding myself accountable to that, but more so giving it a lot of room to just breathe, and me not trying to create anything out of reading the time and sales level too, because of how incredibly hard that is just to begin with, and then factoring upon 10x that because of the volume that's coming in that first minute candle for how many things. I forget what this thing traded on the day. $190 million volume I'm showing in regular hours here. For the type of volume I traded, 229,000 trades. It's pretty decent. Even in this minute volume candle, 2.5 million shares. So just keeping that in mind and allowing it to do what it wants to do. Hey, if it doesn't happen, I can cut you. So it's just letting it have its fun, figure itself out. As it's petering and with big volume, it's not necessarily going awesomely. I mean, for 1.5 entry that I did have average, okay, I'm a few cents in the profit, but then even factoring that as well of what I mentioned in the introduction, if I take 2,000 shares of this and take 5 cents, that's $100 profit. I mean, I can't knock that for anything. Of course, I could, certainly comparing to what I did today with the loss, I certainly will make a tiny dent, but a little dent nonetheless. But like a 100-day winner on some of these small cap plays is absolutely awesome. For a $2,000, for 2,000 share position size, absolutely awesome. So they're just taking that in stride again too of, okay, well, maybe am I just trying to push too big of a price target of even looking for just 1.6 that we came 2 cents away from? okay, well, maybe I can just size myself down with these in the future if I want to try to pursue this little trade and just make it a totally scalpy trade and look for the 3, 4, 5 cents. Let it become a 5% trade as a maximal type of profit-seeking opportunity there. But then factoring in of, okay, well, how many of these do eventually end up just tanking out of the open and offering zero dip and rip opportunity later, 15 minutes after the open, or just zero movement above that open price, and carrying that into the overall net profitability of that potential strategy of just looking for a very quick scalp in that first minute market open. That'll be something I'll be intrigued in to look at, and kind of fits my personality of just being ready and set before the craziness actually happens. And I can have a limit order in already, so just let it run into me, and if it works beautifully, okay, great. If it goes way past me, okay, great. Then I can adjust that in the future if they start to do that more. But yeah, I certainly feel this style of trade matches my personality, and when it doesn't, I'm totally able and willing to cut and recognize that and just let it do what it wants to do and be totally mentally free if a dip and rip pattern starts to come out of this later, if a shorting pattern, if it starts to come out of this thing later, but just totally keep my palate free to be responsive for anything the chart that wants to say for days like that. MOBQ, I'll mention, I did not trade this one, but I just wanted to watch it. Looking for 2-3 was pretty key on the volume profile that it showed on scans here, especially for kind of how it was double, triple topping on that second day after that initial first green day. Pretty hard sell-off day on that first green day. We did actually break, price action did actually break to the upside there within 5 minutes of market open, but just not enough. Not anywhere near the volume that I wanted to see to be trading this thing, and certainly not the type of chasey entry that I would have liked to have been obviously taking to have been in this trade, and just really immediately rejected there. Just no other opportunity off of that. And gosh, it's shorting opportunities just continue to keep piling up, that they seem to be just for how much I'm losing money. It certainly seems like I should be going short every time I want to go long. That's the mentality that I sometimes have to end up carrying. But yeah, that was just good no trade in my opinion on that one that I potentially wanted to watch for today. And then PHIO, man, this one was not my trade whatsoever. This was totally Bowen's pre-market idea. Really didn't even like this one or have any ideas of what to do with it after seeing it yesterday on the scanner. Just thinking, okay, it could have a day that it trends closer to that 276, 28 mark. Could have a day that just does nothingness like this. But for whatever reason, I believed Tim Bowen a little bit too much, or let him bleed into my psyche for a little bit of his praise for this stock of, oh, it's only 30 cents away from that red to green, and oh, okay, it's holding pretty decently. It's put in some nice dollar volume today. $66 million volume during the regular hours I'm showing here on scans. And just from the get-go on this trade, it started off very bad. 50 shares that I started in as it was in this little consolidation, holding decently under VWAP here. Just kind of a starter, or hey, it's holding fairly well. I think it could be a bottom here. Let's start in with 50 shares. Oh, sure enough, it starts breaking and tanking from there. I'm using 1.8 as my cover, or not my cover, but my stop area during pre. Oh, okay, yeah, we're printing pretty hard on the bid there. Oh, there's only one bidder left at 180. Okay, I'll get out before it starts to tank continually below there. Oh, nope, sure enough, it held that level and it's recovered. Oh, and now it's already at above $2 there. So that was just a wonky way to start the first little teaser into this chart, and just left a little bit of a sour taste in my mouth. Just for, not even for the chart itself, but just for how I was trading it and going, okay, well, I hate to start these things off stupidly, but here we go. That's kind of the motto. Either way, getting in now now we're 3rd minute into the market open here. We're under VWAP. I think volume's pretty decent. I think we could get squeezy here. I think if I was remembering correctly, that was HOTH, that it was easy to borrow through Trade Zero. I think it was also fairly easy, or maybe a little bit over like 1% to borrow through Trade Zero, so not like a huge factor on this ticker. The float, if I remember correctly, 13 million that it shows here on scans. So keeping that low float factor in mind, keeping just the respect for this potential downside in the forefront of my mind as well, but just not necessarily making it the forefront figure, which is something that I definitely need to be taking the utmost of care into placing the risk first onto all these trades versus compared to how I normally like to just look at them with my money bag eyes and think, there's no way this thing goes down. It's just going to go up. and then trying to make a trade off of that versus, well, what's the risk reward potential and what's the probability that you feel convicted that this trade could actually happen, and using those variables to make the trade input versus just looking at a chart and saying, oh, this is going to go up, and then taking an entry based off of that. That has been my one crux, and when I will be looking to change something in my trading career, that is what I will be looking to attack there first and foremost, of not just becoming a totally fly by the seat of my pants of, oh, I think it could do this, and just going along with that, but of making plans, sticking to it, predetermining what my parameters for the trade are. But either way, sizing in with this actual trade, trying to play for a red to green move, looking for a preemptive actual move there, and especially as we had this $2 psychological level to climb to as we were just under VWAP there at market open. Hey, that could be a potential little catapult as well too if we get to the upside of there. Started sizing in with like 100 shares. I think I had 50 shares here at this point, or maybe 100, and then getting in another 200 here just above $2 as I thought we were having strength. We're now above $2. Sure enough, that's going to be the exact top there on the morning session, and just continued to sell off. So as the move didn't happen from there, I quickly realized, okay, I do not want to be taking this big of a size during this failed move. That the reason I sized in with 200 shares at that point was to let it accelerate and think that was really the only last opportunities I had as it was going to continue to accelerate. But as it wasn't happening, recognized that for those individual shares and just went ahead and ended up cutting them, but still leaving on the few lingering ones to say, I don't think it's completely dead yet. I'm going to give it that much room to let it breathe and maybe shake a few more people out in that. But that was the end. That was all of the trade there. And I was kind of shocked for the size of loss that I took on this one. Not really. That leads into wouldn't factor in what the potential loss could be on this one for the size I wanted to take. And I do not want that to happen. I don't want to be a repeating trend in this career. I do want to take special care and attention to that and focus on what the downside could be and not just become so swayed, like I mentioned earlier, of thinking, oh, well, this one's going to go up. There's just that gut intuition that it's going to go up. And not first off thinking, okay, well, if you think it's going to go up, how much do you think it's going to go up? Not that you have to set a hard price target, but well, do you think it's actually going to go up enough for you to make a profit from anywhere that you could be getting an entry? And also, what's your risk going to be if it goes against you, when it goes against you? Using those factors as the primary incentive for the trade versus just the kind of blind ignorance and stupidity of, well, I have to be pushing buttons and I think it's going to go up, so I'm going to play off of that. This is no longer going to be a part of this trading career. So that was all I had on the day. I don't think I even had a winner on the day. Just one of those days that it's meant to just continue to beat you down and make you feel like the stupidest person on earth. And that's totally fine. If I'm the stupidest person on earth but still collecting money from the market, then who's the stupid one? Right? It's not about being smart. It's not about being in trades that look good that you can showboat around the salon. It's about making freaking money. And that's constantly what I have to remind myself with and view trading in that way of relating it more to those video game points and understanding that is using emotion in this is just death. It's not helping anybody. And I'm slowly starting to get and crawl out of these old bad habits that maybe came a little bit from that hot 2020 market that I did start in, but just still, of course, they tag along from that human nature. And slowly detaching myself from that, from the ego, is slowly making me a better trader in my career. I just know it with the fullness of my heart. So that is all I had. I sincerely thank you guys for watching, and we will catch you guys on the next one.